thing that that governments do when, the first thing they do is they try to cripple another country's economy.
But it can be said that the U.S. government is intentionally trying to provoke Iran into war. I mean, that almost seems obvious at this point. And why would they be doing that in your analysis?
Absolutely. Well, it takes me back all the way back to Japan with the Roosevelt administration. Most people think that that Pearl Harbor, the attack on Pearl Harbor, was completely unprovoked. But what we're not taught in our history class is that beginning from 1939. The United States was imposing sanctions and embargoes and trying to sabotage the Japanese economy.
Yes.
And so this is another thing. And then there are several points all throughout history. We can go down a line to go back to Iran back in 1953 when the United States was instrumental in removing their president and putting the Shah in power. It's always the economic guns that come out first, and so for anybody to say that Iran is overreacting by threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz, well, they're kind of doing that in a sense of self-preservation. They are reacting to what we're doing. It's like an international game of chicken,
sure.
And there was a secret message delivered to Iran threatening that we would employ embargoes against Iran should they choose to close the Strait of Hormuz. The United States did not confirm that, and then eventually they did confirm it, but they didn't say what was actually said, or they didn't say where it was coming from. And just today I read that Iran has acknowledged that they have received this threat from the United States. So
okay, so the economic guns have been brought out for sure. A lot of strategic political chess playing behind the scenes. But what about the political guns in terms of the presidential election in the USA? People always rally behind their president in time of war. Doesn't it also seem likely that the Obama administration would welcome an act of war right before Election Day, or sufficiently before Election Day to have time for the country to rally behind him and re-elect the president? I mean, isn't it almost that do you think that's a valid point? What's your take on it?
I think it's a valid speculation, and my speculation, and it is a speculation, this is my opinion, is that I think the American people are getting tired of war. We're getting tired of constantly being engaged in other countries while we're not taking care of our own domestic problems. So I don't know if that would be advantageous for the Obama administration. I don't see that as a rallying point per se. I think we're weary of it. We want to get out of Iraq and Afghanistan. We're in the process of pulling out of Iraq, I guess, but Afghanistan,
or at least changing the labels of the soldiers that are still there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and then there's all these contractors, these security contractors and whatnot, and we have. We're not, as we have military bases in Iraq. We have if you look at a map of where all the military bases are located in the Middle East, I mean, we're basically surrounding Iran in Afghanistan and Iraq, and I think that was the long-term goal in invading Iraq. It wasn't so much about oil. It certainly wasn't about weapons of mass destruction. It was more about establishing a presence. And
all right, let me shift gears, if you don't mind, get to a topic a little closer to home. You, as the editor of Survivalist magazine, you do a lot of interviews, you talk to a lot of people out there. It's 2012. This is the big year that everyone was talking about. The Mayan calendar mythology has been floating around out there. The rapture talk has been out there. Are you seeing, first of all, an increase in interest in survival or preparedness strategies? And do you find, my second question is, do you find that people are approaching it from a practical point of view, or is there a sense of, I mean, the Mayan calendar thing, I would almost call that, unfounded mythology. What are you seeing out there in terms of real people interested in preparedness?
In terms of the people that I work with and the people that I talk to on a regular basis, no, we're not seeing the fact that the Mayan calendar ends on December 21st, 2012 is largely happenstance. It doesn't signify anything. And in fact, we have an issue coming out in which we address a lot of 2012 issues. And we have an article written by a fellow who, Christopher Nagiris, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. And he has actually spent time in the Yucatan Peninsula with the Mayan people, with the present-day Mayans, and they do not have any kind of interpretation in regards to like the end of the world as far as the Mayan calendar ending. So if the Mayans don't think that the end of the Mayan calendar signifies the end of the world, then I don't think, you know, that's good enough for me. You know, take it from the source. You know, and then there's all kinds of other fringe theories out there about Planet X and whatnot. And you know, I take a more practical stance. I mean, just looking around, there's a perfect storm brewing, and these are all issues that are right in our faces. I mean, we don't have to speculate about, you know, any kind of mythical or, you know, and I'm not saying I'm not interested in those things. I am. You know, I've always been a avid
no, I mean, what you're saying is there are plenty of down-to-earth reasons to be prepared. You don't have to reach for theories in outer space to have a justification to get prepared. I mean, just look at the Fed, right?
They may, yeah, exactly, and they may not be as dramatic or as sexy as, or you know, interesting as say, you know, the planet Nibiru, you know, crashing down on us. But yeah, I mean, with the growing food crisis that we have, increasing disasters, the peak oil issue, you know, water shortages. Right now, the Ogallala aquifer is being pumped dry, where experts are predicting that eventually the American breadbasket is going to turn back into the Dust Bowl. You know, and it's the same thing is happening in other countries. Overpopulation. This is another issue people roll their eyes about. You know, and I did too. I was like, "What are you talking about? There's still plenty of real estate to go around." But overpopulation is not about overcrowding. You know, we may still have plenty of space, but we don't. We're starting to outstrip our resources. We're using up our water. We're using up our ability for producing food, and we're using up too many resources. It's getting to the point where nature doesn't have a chance. Like through commercial farming practices, our soil is becoming depleted, and we're losing topsoil. We're losing the nutrients in the soil because of the way that factory farms operate. Right. And it's not just here. This is, you know, you have to really look at what's going on a global basis in China, in India. Those people are starving, and they're depleting their aquifers faster than they can be replenished. They're depleting their soil. So, you know, there's a number of issues that, you know, the economy being chief among them, that, you know, are just bearing down on us. And I like, Ed, how you describe this as a slow motion collapse, where it's not like you wake up one day and everything's on fire and the whole system has collapsed. It's actually, I mean, maybe in the future, when historians look back at this time, they will call it one event. They'll have one name for this era of change and reform and collapse and rebirth, perhaps. But when you're living in it, it feels like slow motion. And I think that's a really wise message from you, that we need to be able to see the signs and recognize that we're in this time of change without needing to see that, oh, the whole world's exploding and, you know, aliens are jumping out of their lizard skin and taking Federal Reserve officials back to Planet X or whatever they do. I mean, you know, this is real, and it's kind of slower than what a lot of people imagine. Yeah, well, yeah, and you know, people ask me all the time, well, you know, for predictions, you know, when is this going to happen? What do you think? You know, how much time do you think we have left? You know, and there are situations, or there are certain events that could happen. For example, we're coming into a solar maximum where we could have another Carrington event. For those of you who aren't familiar, the last time we had a massive solar storm was back in 1859, which wiped out, all we had back then were telegraph lines, but it wiped out our telegraph system and started fires and whatnot. And scientists are saying that we're overdue for that, and this year could possibly be, you know, if we get hit by a solar flare. And other issues that the magnetic field around the Earth, there is a major gap in the magnetic field. Sure. Now, what got me interested in survivalism in the first place, you know, I classified myself as an outdoorsman. You know, I just like camping and hiking, living in extreme environments. And I got woken up by, you know, the fact I saw a documentary that was produced back in the 80s about what actually happens when the grid goes down. You know, and I think most people they downplay it, or they don't. I think, oh, we'll just break out the candles and we'll be fine. But in a long term situation, power loss situation that will last for years if our grid crashes due to an EMP or a solar flare, which creates an EMP event. That could be one of those situations where we wake up one morning and our world is fundamentally transformed. We're basically back into 19th century existence.
Yeah, that's where people will really wish they had gone through the skills and practiced these things and not just read the books and watched the TV shows. Any last thoughts as we wrap this up?
Yeah, and just to follow up on the grid crash event, I mean, there's going to be a long period of time too where there's going to be looting and rioting, and it's going to be very dangerous times, and it's not going to be a good time to live in a city. So. My recommendation is to all people. I mean, I hope we would have had more time to discuss the membership site that we have. Is to be prepared, start stocking up on food, and even if there isn't an economic collapse, food prices are going up, oil prices are going to go up, and oil prices affect the price of everything else.
Yeah,
because it all has to be. It takes petroleum to grow our crops. It takes petroleum to transport our crops. It takes petroleum to do everything. We do not have an infrastructure to live in a non-petroleum based society, and so food storage, even if there is no major economic collapse, you're going to save yourself a lot of money by buying your food now and putting it away, and you'll have that for if something drastic does happen overnight, or if we just find ourselves ignoring the road signs and find ourselves in a situation where, like, how did we get here? You'll have those provisions available, and a good place to start is at CompleteSurvivalist.com. That's our site where we have tons of survival guides, experts, expert interviews. We have a biweekly mastermind calls where people can ask their questions and learn how to get prepared, because it's a lot more than just food.
I'm going to ask you on Natural News as well. I'm sure Alex will want to talk to you again, but I appreciate you joining us, and I'll give out your website again here for those who want to learn more. But the bottom line is, you're a guy who's been out there on the front lines of the survival industry, so to speak, and you sort of aggregate all the top knowledge from those out there, different writers. James Wesley Rawls, survivalblog.com, also wrote an article for you, and he's well informed. So a lot of folks. So I appreciate what you're doing, and I think you bring a lot of value to the public. Thanks for joining us tonight, Ed.
Thanks for having me on, Mike. It was a pleasure.
All right, folks, that was Ed Corcoran from CompleteSurvivalist.com. A lot of good information from him there. Definitely take this seriously, folks. 2012 is here. The world is changing rapidly, and it's time to do more than just listen and just be a spectator. Be an active participant in taking care of your own safety, your own health, your own freedom in 2012 and beyond. Thank you for watching InfoWars Nightly News tonight. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger from Natural News, signing off on Monday, January 16th. Have a good night. We'll talk to you again soon.